This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
There's always an opportunity to differentiate yourself, and you can't have any doubt. There's going to be more people that are going to say, well, that sounds cool, but I don't think it's going to pan out. Take it and grow with it. Take it and fuel your fire. I mean, make it drive you.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Hey everybody, this is Todd Ersley with the Do It for a Living podcast, and with me today is the co-founder of Hypercar Development. His name is Thad Norman, and Thad and I actually met about a month ago at a recent event, the Michelin launch for the Pilot Sport 4S. This was an event that, they were inviting influencers and people in the market, to try to spread the word about the new tire. And so it was really cool to kind of experience something that Chris had just recently talked about personally. And so Thad, has been in the hypercar world for many, many years. And when he co-founded the Hypercar Development Group, they wanted to focus on the McLaren platform. And so he's been working closely with Michelin on a project that we will most certainly be talking about later in the podcast. But just want to go ahead and introduce you guys to Thad. Thad, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent, man. It's a nice sunny day here in Dallas. I wanted to go ahead and get things started. We kind of want to hear your background, where you came from. Did you start in cars as a child, or, what kind of brought you up to the point of getting involved with hypercar development?
Yeah, absolutely. So, always had a passion for cars ever since I was younger. When my parents had a stick shift and I was dying to learn how to drive it, and parents had an Audi TT that I would beg my dad to drive at any and all times, but usually it was only for the high school dances and special events.
Yeah.
So, and then my car in college for a present, I got a GTI 6-speed and loved that car. Did a few upgrades on it.
What year was that? What year was the model? 2007
GTI is when they redid the face of the Jetta and GTI then.
Okay.
And did a different exhaust and nothing too crazy, and lower the suspension a little bit, but definitely a fun car, that you can fly around town in, and definitely love that car. And that's really what got my passion going even more. But honestly, the knowledge behind, the McLaren platform and, all the development, it's been Safa is the lead development engineer. So he's the one that, I honestly never heard of the McLaren brand until I talked to him. And, him and I have known each other since I was in high school. So we're longtime friends. And he fell in love with the F1 when he was younger. And then when McLaren announced the 12C and P1 release, and, we both, followed it closely. And that's when we started, dreaming up this idea of working on them and, having the fastest McLaren in the world.
So did you guys have a business before getting into that?
So him and he had a couple of businesses that I worked with him on at the time. I had a full-time job, so it was kind of just working alongside. He did, before we met, or I think it was before we met, he started he was a Le Mans prototype developer,
okay.
Le Mans test driver. So, he's got a very strong racing background. He's our lead test driver and track driver, where, I'm trying to keep up with him on the track.
Yeah.
And then, so he went from there. He had a couple companies. He built some MotoGP bikes, and then MotoGP race wheels and race components. I was involved in some of that. And then, that's where the stream of the developing the McLaren platform spawned after that. So I had a full-time job in factory automation, so I've got a pretty strong engineering background dealing with anything from tire manufacturing. So, I've been in all the different tire manufacturing plants out there, Goodyear, Michelin, Bridgestone, and then also automotive, a lot in the Carolinas, like the big BMW plant down in Greenville. So, I've got a strong background seeing the biggest companies and the smallest companies and how they automate their process and become successful.
Gotcha. And so did you get a college degree as well?
Yes, I majored in physics with a minor in math and computer information systems.
And so that's how you got into the automation side of things?
Actually, I was in the Navy for a little bit. I was a nuclear engineer, supposed to be on a submarine, and actually Navy had a downsize when the economy crashed.
Uh-huh.
They called it a RIF, reduction in force, and I was let go before I even stepped on a submarine, and so that transition was where I then went into the automation side.
Okay. And so when you teamed up to start, working on the McLarens, where were you working? Did you have a full-time job?
Yes. So when Safa and I first, put this whole idea together, I was still doing engineering sales in the automation space. So, it was something that in the first year or two in development, I was working weekends and nights to help Safa in developing this platform and building a company, a brand, and a product from it.
So you kind of slowly transitioned out?
Yeah, it was full-time job for as long as I could manage it, and then went full-time with Hypercar when we were able to. We had the demand on the builds, and we needed more hands in the shop.
How many cars were you guys working on, or what was the time frame when the Hypercar development started?
So Hypercar, when they first announced the 12C and the P1, that's where both of us, especially Safa, got really excited about it, and we got to talking about it, and we're like, okay, well, we don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to stick with it and produce, for many years, or are they going to do it kind of like the F1 and just have a short production and that's it for extended period of time? So then shortly after the 12C, a lot of the 12C owners that first bought the car were not happy when McLaren quickly changed it to the 650S, and that's when him and I started. We had a business plan in place. We partnered up with some investors, and that's where we started the company. Got our hands on a 12C and started tearing into it. In the first 2 years, we're strictly studying the car, aggravating it, testing different components on upgrading it. Where are the limitations? And it wasn't until we had a solid 2 years of development in the car that we then presented our 800 system and started selling those. It was coming up on 2 years in July.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's been a very quick business growth then for you guys.
Yes, compared to some businesses, there's some businesses that they take 3-4 years to develop a product before they even have any sales. So I would say relatively yes. But it seems like a lifetime.
Yes, yeah, it's many hours, but on the calendar, it's not too long. And so I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, you are working with very, very, very expensive cars. So did you was getting investment is probably a big part of it, but was that very difficult? I'm just kind of thinking off the cuff that if you want to start a Honda shop, it's going to be tough to get investment from somebody, but the customers that are buying the 12Cs and the P1s, they're most likely well-versed in investment. Like these are
Right.
high wealth individuals. And so did you go to maybe some of your customers, or I guess there weren't customers at the time, but some of the enthusiasts in that market to raise funding, or did you go to more of a business aspect of it?
Well, we tried a couple of different avenues when we were first starting out. We tried to go after one of the investment groups, like the Charlotte Angel Fund Group,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, those guys turned it down. And that's one of the things
they didn't understand the passion, probably, huh?
Well, it's a very niche market, and it takes somebody that knows the market and sees these multi-million-dollar companies that all they do are big horsepower builds on different brand cars to see the opportunity. But also, you've got to have faith in the guys that are wanting to develop that company and the dream. So it's hard to do that on pen and paper. I can absolutely see that. But, my motto, especially my sales background, is every no is an opportunity to say yes later. So, I took, one try at the Angel Fund path and realized that was not the route to go. And we'd have to find an individual that we developed a bond with and believes in us, and we present this business plan with them, and they're going to either believe in it or they're not.
Gotcha. So with that, having to go out for investors, do you have a formal business plan?
Yes, we did have one, and it's followed pretty closely to what we originally had in mind, and the systems that we plan to develop. We had a plan for the Tri-Boost technology that we've got a global patent on it now. Mm-hmm. That's something that Safa had thought up, and we knew it was going to have to get creative with the tight engine bay space of the McLaren platform. And it was something new, unique, and definitely captivates anybody's never heard of what a Tri-Boost is. So, but yeah, we had the 800,000, 1,200, 1,500 as builds that we had planned in different, we call them phases, for the McLaren platform. And we started with 800, generated enough business to keep hiring people here, but also developing the 1,000, 1,200, and then went into the 1,200 and went straight for that. And now next step is we're developing the 1,500. I
saw the little coming soon sign on your website there for the 1,500. So can you explain a little more about the Tri-Power? Because is it like a compound turbo? I mean, if you got a patent on it, it's got to be something unique that's not just one turbo to two turbos. So, can you explain a little bit about how that works?
The concept isn't that crazy. It's not far off from a lot of diesel engines that have a small turbo for low end and bigger turbo for high end. But then you've got to get creative in how you sequentially compound the larger turbo. We've got over 80 millimeter third turbo that is going into the factory turbo housings that we rebuild the internals. And then we also flow synchronize those with our turbo partner in conjunction with the third turbo. So, people ask, are the twins feeding the third turbo? We're still studying, the flow dynamics of it. There's aspects at which the twins are scavenging and pulling the third turbo, and there's actually areas in which the third turbo is pushing the twins. Mm-hmm. At 3 psi, that massive third turbo kicks in. We thought it would take a while to spool up. It spools up very quickly.
Well, yeah, that's really cool. And so what psi are you guys running full tilt on the 12 or the 1200?
We've gotten up to 45 psi, and then we found a weak point in not in the engine, but in certain components. And so we have that new component in development now. And then the 1500, we've got to do additional upgrades that weren't required for the 1200. So that's what's really, we're taking our time and doing the 1500 because we've got to go to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Like, just can't even imagine trying to upgrade a McLaren. Did you kind of see yourself as being an entrepreneur your whole life, or is this something that you didn't expect to be doing when you were growing up?
I can honestly say I don't think it was anything I necessarily dreamed about, and it wasn't until I left the Navy and I started the corporate world path, working for multi-billion-dollar companies that once I went from one to another, eventually I realized that that restriction on just my creativity and my wanted freedom to be able to drive opportunities how I see the best fit, and them being presented to me were restricting me, and I just didn't see a growth path within the corporate world that would go along with my work ethic and work drive.
Yeah, so this was an opportunity that kind of presented itself, or you worked towards it, but it was a good opportunity to change pace and, do something a little bit more passion driven, huh?
Absolutely. And you've got to have passion. Otherwise you're not going to make it.
Exactly. So within this market, I mean, I'm sure it's a very small market, but are there other companies modifying McLarens?
There are, but not to the extent that we do. There's most of the market out there. It's strictly a tune and maybe some J pipes and maybe some filters, and that's it. There's only one other company that really. I think there's only one in the States that modifies the turbos, but nobody has, to this day, to our knowledge, rebuilt the engine and then produced over 1,000 horsepower. And the biggest differentiator between us and, I think this is where Michelin was drawn to us, was we've taken the time, and that's part of the reason that we took so long working on the 800 initially, is we knew where we were going with it, and that is that I think we're the first one to rebuild any supercar and use the factory ECU. Most of the companies out there, they're ripping out the brains and putting in a Motec, which works great for straight line, but I haven't seen any of those cars perform well on a road course. And that's what the McLaren brand, we like to stick true to the brand, and we're passionate about the brand. And our bread and butter is road course. We're getting involved in the straight line community. Honestly, Safa nor I are really straight line drivers. There's definitely a technique to it, especially when we start getting the higher horsepower racing events. And both of us love the road course, and that's our passion. And our whole thing is we want to have a 1,500 horsepower Michelin slicks, race wheels, just aerodynamic monster, setting track records across the country.
Well, what is the base horsepower that the cars start out at?
Right. So 12C starts at 616. 650 is 640 horsepower range, and 675 is 666 horsepower.
Okay, and is that at the wheels?
That's at the crank. Okay. So our 800 system is crank. So you're seeing usually 200 horsepower jump.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're pretty consistent on the 800. We're usually within a 10 horsepower range. Depending upon how aggressive the customer wants to go, we'll usually keep it 810 to 820 for the daily driver, and then for the track enthusiast, we'll go a little more aggressive, go to 820, maybe to 840. 840 is about the hardest we'll push it, and then really the 800 is a comprehensive system in that beyond upgrading the full exhaust, we were the first ones, used to be the only ones that did Inconel exhaust. So we used the best materials, and that's just from testing and proving that stainless steel doesn't hold up to the track temps and the demands that we put the car through its paces. We've seen the welds not hold up over time. So that's where we transitioned to Inconel. And then on top of that, we do a coolant system upgrade. We're the only one in the industry that do coolant system upgrades on McLarens. And, McLaren's a great brand. They developed an amazing platform, but they're very particular in where they chose their limitations. So it's all the McLaren brands we've seen it, they perform great on the track, but if you talk about doing a track day in Texas or Florida or California in the heat of summer, they don't do so well, just because the coolant system's good enough to do a track day, but not quite strong enough to do a very hot track day. And that's where we saw if you just take the factory platform, a coolant system upgrade helps it tremendously. But if you're going to add 200 additional horsepower, it's not going to be reliable. You're not going to be able to enjoy the car on the track for the track enthusiast that goes. We've got some customers that go weekly, and they're not going to be able to enjoy the car to 110%, going 10/10ths all the time, unless you have the coolant system upgrade to support the power.
Yeah, that's becoming a very common issue with more modern cars. I mean, me being in Texas, that's where the majority of the events that I go to are. And the road course events, most of the new cars have lots of issues. And it's kind of surprising and a little disheartening. I mean, I know the Corvettes had, the new supercharged, I guess it's the Z06
Right.
has issues making it like one lap around some of the tracks here in Texas during the summer. And I've got I did a lot of testing on the Focus RS as well, trying to increase the cooling capacity of that. So not surprised at all that a car, even as high tech as the McLaren, is going to have issues when the ambient temp is 95 degrees and it's high noon and you're out there at COTA, for how long is their back straight? I mean, it's like,
it's ridiculous.
It's just absurdly long. So yeah, that's really cool that you're kind of addressing a lot of the road course guys too. So that's something that, even if you don't modify the power level, they can get the cooling upgrade and then, just enjoy it more on the track. Is that kind of the idea of just, if they wanted to do that?
For the most part, we usually do a 800 with the coolant system. There's only a couple customers that we've done strictly a coolant system upgrade. Okay. But we try to be open-minded to any and all opportunities with what customers are looking to do with their cars. And even just doing a coolant system upgrade, you're not going to have. We've got tons of data of testing these cars. We did, prime example, Willow Springs in August this past summer, and there's another guy out there with a 12C, and probably one of the best drivers out there. He'd been driving that track for 15 years, knew inside and out, and he was beating that car up, and the car went into full limp mode by lunch. Where our 800 car, we were back to back taking customers out for rides and just attendees of the event, and it lasted all day, and it had 200 additional horsepower. So, you can see where, like you've seen in Texas, the coolant system becomes a very important factor to improving horsepower, but not only that, making it reliable.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys are located in North Carolina, is that correct?
Right.
So how did you guys end up there? How did that become your home base for McLaren modification?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. They're like, why Charlotte of all places? Safa and I were living here at the time, when we started diving into this opportunity, this development. But additionally, there's a reason that we've done well here is that the suppliers are here. There's only, in a tight-knit area, I think the two best locations in the country to have the most resources at your disposal for development of a high horsepower system or engine are going to be Indianapolis and Charlotte, because they're both race cities. Now, granted, I know Texas and Southern California, they have the same amount of resources, but oftentimes it's spread across the entire city. There's literally a street in Charlotte north of Charlotte, Mooresville, that's the majority of the race suppliers are right there. So, and they're only a couple miles up the highway from us. So, that has been very important in the development. Of course, everybody knows in this industry, you have your delays, and there's certain events that you're pulling all-nighters, and we've had to have our suppliers stop by on the weekends, late nights, and help us in modifying certain components to ensure that we have a car ready for an event. So, and that has been a tremendous help. In hindsight, but initially I was like, well, I was kind of hesitant in the location, but definitely a perfect location for what we're doing.
Yeah, I think I've actually been to that little neighborhood in Mooresville. I remember we've got a customer of ours that's up there, and I remember driving down the road, and you could see it wasn't like the street surface was just a normal street, but it was almost completely black because of all the burnouts that they had done. It was like, when every single building in this complex is a race shop or a race team or a manufacturer, it was a really cool little area out there. And so do you think that's helped play a role in your success? Being that close to all the suppliers is nice. So does that really help out a lot?
I think, to your point earlier, in the time frame of the success, it's made a huge difference. If you talk about shipping parts back and forth, there's a certain level of intangibility to presenting a part to a supplier and saying this is what we need, and not just shipping it to them and trying to explain it over the phone. you've got to have that person there with you, and trying to describe changes and design over the phone is extremely hard, and that's where majority of our suppliers we like to have within arm's reach, so that that we can have them come to the shop, do test fitment. It's not like we can ship a partially built car out very easily and have them develop a new design for us. So I think it's helped in the speed of the development process, but also the speed and the growth of the company for sure.
Gotcha. So on the flip side of that, with you guys being way out on the East Coast, I've seen you now in California and in Dallas at events. How logistically is that to get? You're shipping. I've at least seen the 1200 car 2 different places now. So, do you have a guy that just drives your vehicles around and you guys kind of fly out there? Like, how is that working logistically for time wise?
So yeah, it became a bit of a headache this past year trying to make it all to the events. I think by Monterey was a point where we were getting invited. We were having to turn down probably twice as many events as we could attend.
Okay.
And so that's where we came up with an alternative solution, which is we're working with customers that we've got a great relationship with, and having partnerships with them in a sense that, hey, we want to definitely work on your car and provide a system, but we also, when we can't have a car in the area, are you open to joining us in an event and we showcase your car at the event? And it's essentially the hypercar car for the event. And so far it's gone really well, and we've got a number of customers we're working with in different areas on that, and it's saved us already so much headache, money, time, and trying to get our cars elsewhere. Our cars can be at other events on the other side of the country, and we've got customers that are very active in the community, do a lot of events, and are open to attending more events when we get invited to them. So that's, I think, something that a little hesitant to share because I don't want everybody to know that secret, but it's working out tremendously so far. So.
Yeah, you're building the cars for the customers, and they're showcasing, they're proud of their work. So, it makes sense to do that. And it's logistically and probably money wise, that's a huge help because, you can fly across the country in half a day, but it takes, 2 days to drive. Yeah. Like to drive a car out there would be, even if you didn't stop, would be awful. So that's pretty cool that you're able to do that with them. So do you plan on staying in that location for years to come, or is you guys going to try to open up, maybe something more central or, even on the West Coast side?
So we are staying here right now. The whole goal of the shop here, we've got enough space to manage the demand right now. We've got 4 lifts, and then we've got 4 post lift for our 2-wheel dyno. And with where we're going and the development, what our goal is to only do 1,000+ horsepower builds here in Charlotte, unless it's a really local customer. So what we've done is I just finished with LA build. So we have a partner shop out there, and we just finished sorting out the schedule on a second build in LA. And we've got a lead technician out there at the Hypercar employee that is going to be taking over the builds from now on after the second one. And then we've already partnered with a shop in DC, so to handle all Northeast builds. And basically those builds are strictly going to be 800 builds.
Okay.
And then that's going to relieve some bandwidth on our end. It's going to allow us to expand without necessarily having to buy a whole new facility, but also partner with key local companies. It's amazing, what you can achieve when you have a local resource. And that I've seen that aspect of it from the corporate side. I worked for one corporate company that was not the number one name in the industry, and then I moved over to the number one name in the industry, and they had local distribution channels. And having local resources that know all the customers, the community, and is huge. And that's where having these shops that are passionate about our company as well as theirs, and it's a perfect partnership, and then also helps us reach more customers. I'm seeing that like we're going to be going down this path, not just domestically but also internationally.
Yeah, that's excellent idea. We've hey, do you happen to need a Dallas shop as well?
I'm actually looking for a Texas area location actively.
Yeah, I actually recognize the shop, your LA build. One of our other guests on the podcast, Jason Dienhart, that does Global Time Attack. He works out of the office where the dyno is that did your that 800 build.
Okay.
I saw some pictures of it on Facebook, and I recognized their dyno cell. So yeah, I was like, I wonder if they're building stuff, if they're doing it with other shops. And we've actually approached several other shops kind of with that same idea. We say, hey, you guys make, excellent products, and, you're on the coast, if you want to break into the Dallas market, you should look into strategic partnerships with, a shop that already exists here to do installs for you. It's a certified installer is really all it is. You see it with many, many, many big companies, like tire companies, for instance, they'll reference you to somebody to put it on. And so I think that's really cool that you guys are doing that, and kind of it allows you to expand the more common aspects of it. They're not going to be building engines, but they can at least get the majority, the 80% of the customers that want the 800 package and the cooling upgrade, so
right.
Kudos on that. I think that's an excellent idea.
Thank you.
So is there anything, you kind of doubt yourself on, or something that you kind of work on in the future to make improvements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're going the entrepreneurial route, if you don't have a stomach to worry about, honestly, the business failing on an every other day basis from one headache to another, you probably don't want to dive into it. It's a very stressful, especially the first few years of the business growing, building the name, the brand. You constantly doubt if is it going to pan out this time. But you've got to solve one problem at a time, and don't focus on the worry about it, and just focus on the problem at hand, and just have literally an indomitable will to make it happen and make it work. I see closed-mindedness being the biggest problem in people growing businesses. You've got to be open-minded to anything. Certain other people in the shop were not open to the idea of doing multiple shops, and this partnership in DC has already been going so well, and we haven't even done a DC build yet, that it's really showing us the light on where remote locations are the way to go. So, and that's really the way. We've had a few international sales, but I think that's the biggest limiting factor on the global reach too, is shipping a car in and out of a country. I mean, it's already hard enough to ship it across the country, let alone in and out of another country. Is very expensive, timely, and just absolute headache.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the difficulty with doing that, but we see that a lot with the GTR shops that we know. They're building cars for customers all around the world, and so you guys are going to fall into that same aspect as well. And so with this new platform, I'm assuming there's a lot, but have you come across any or what have been the unforeseen difficulties in developing aftermarket parts for this platform?
Yeah, there's definitely been a learning curve, big time, with this platform. Absolutely. I mean, it's not like McLaren handed us a manual. Every manufacturer doesn't like companies messing with their product. If people don't do it right, it can cause them more problems than it can cause good. So really, there's definitely been a lot of roadblocks that we've ran into. The biggest difficulty, and why a lot of companies haven't rebuilt engines and used the factory ECU, is that there's the ECUs nowadays. There's so many parameters and so many safeguards that they really lock it down and not be able to raise horsepower significantly, even to the point that I'm willing to bet money that you're going to see piggybacks go out of business probably in the next 5 years. We've got another company that developed from Hypercar, Zip Tuning USA, and we met Zip in Europe through our Hypercar development, and they asked us to start up the Zip USA branch. So we're doing tuning for any and all imports. Master tuning company that works with shops around the country, similar to like a APR, the other big names. And through that, we have a piggyback solution we tried on a new Maserati. And the Maserati on the dyno had the highest horsepower numbers on the first pull, and then gradually went down to the point of stock. The ECU,
wow. It was like learning.
It was reverting back to the factory settings and knowing that something is tampering with it.
Wow.
So you're going to see tuning companies eventually, I think, get away from piggybacks just because there's only so much you can do through OBD2 port. You can't have full access to everything. The only way you can have full access through OBD2 port is you've got to have a software programmer that can sit down and literally hack the car. Mm-hmm. So you got to go one of two paths. You either got to have a tremendous software development background or access to that, or you're going to go away from the piggyback route, and you're just going to see tune flashes more frequent than you are on the piggybacks.
So where did your competitive advantage come to actually do the tuning? Like who cracked, I guess, would it be cracking the ECU in you guys' case? Like how did you come across doing that?
So we've got Safa and his brother Abe are lead tuners, and Safa was the original one that cracked the ECU, along with Brian. Brian's another member of the team that has a strong software background, and Abe's got a really strong background, and so him and his brother, Abe was more in the motorcycle community as majority of his career, but he also, the Infinity standalone unit, it's like a Motec, he helped develop that. So he's got a very strong background in tuning and doing things with an ECU that I never imagined we'd be able to do.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So do you personally, read any business books or listen to anything, to kind of get you motivated on the business side? Or is that something that you guys just intrinsically have that skill?
I have never read a business book. I am one of those that believe in experience is the ultimate learning curve, I guess. Lack of a better phrase, but
yeah.
But I've worked for some very big companies. I've seen a lot of good decisions and bad decisions, and what has grown the business, what hasn't grown the business, and we all have very different backgrounds here. I'm not the only one that by any means that helps in the development and the growth of this company. With Safa with his motorsport background, and then Eric is another member of the team. He's got a very strong mechanical background, and is one of our lead CNC machinists, and also does a lot of the SolidWorks with Safa. So it's I think you've got to have a dynamic team to be able to cover all the different areas of a development of this nature. Otherwise, you're going to miss an aspect, and you're going to have a tremendous failure at some point. But yeah, I don't think anybody in this building reads business books. We just try to feed off each other and be open to new ideas and
learn as you go, huh?
Yeah, it's sink or swim.
I guess so, man. Sounds good. Well, let's take a quick break here. We're going to hear a little bit about the My Shop Assist software.
We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial.
Okay, so we're back here with Thad Norman of Hypercar Development. And Thad, tell us something right now that's got you really fired up.
So yes, absolutely. I mean, we were invited like yourself to probably the biggest event that we've attended. And I say biggest in a certain manner. Biggest for us because it was so exclusive, but also such a well-organized and huge event. I mean, of course, Monterey, SEMA, I mean, those are massive events that you can't really top. But you talk about, what we consider the number one brand for tire in the industry, putting on a launch at Thermal, one of the best tracks in the country, and presenting a new tire to the entire world. That they haven't done a tire launch to that caliber in they said 5 or 6 years, and being invited to that as one of the few to be able to experience it. I mean, it's hard to describe the extent in which they put the passion into developing this whole tire launch, but the exclusivity of being able to attend it was huge. And not only that, to have the opportunity for them to want to do a piece on our company. So they did several videos about Safa and myself, and our Hyper 1200 was out there. And I think it's going to be multi-part video release that we're doing, and that's really the first time that we had presented this idea, honestly, to Michelin when we first met Johnny, and he was like, well, let's not talk about the Speed 300 right now. You might scare away some of the engineers. So let's table that for right now, and we'll talk about it more later on. But it's amazing that they warmed up to our company and were a fan of us, and really, as we showed them, our level of development and everything, not only on the performance side, but we design our own wheels, and how we engineer our own wheels and the offset and every single aspect of it. They saw that we had a passion for true engineering, just like they do. Their R&D, I think, they invest more in R&D than what Bridgestone, Goodyear, and like the top 3 companies combined. And so they see the amount that we put into it. And doing a piece about us, our goal is to set the world record. And when they post that video, a lot of people were very particular in what they heard about it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, there's a land speed record of a jet car going 760 miles per hour, but it's the first street legal car to achieve 300 miles per hour in the standing mile. Right now, the record's 284, I believe. But there's not very many production cars that have let alone hit 300 period. And that's the first goal. And then second goal is to hit it in a standing mile.
So I did not know it was just a standing mile. That makes it significantly more difficult.
Well, they kind of just went for the 300 because that's such a ridiculous benchmark period. Uh-huh. But there's the cars that have the top speed and the standing mile definitely can achieve 300. So, that's where I think that you're really going to prove yourself to be the fastest car in the world if you can do 300 in standing mile.
Yeah, that's I'll be very frank. That's a lofty goal. I figured 300 in the, just a straightaway for any period of length was going to be tough, because there's a couple GTRs, the shop that has the fastest standing mile GTR is down in Austin, and they did like 250 something. And I mean, that GTR had over 2,000 horsepower. So what are you guys, and it's all wheel drive. So what are you guys going to be bringing to the table to kind of to get that extra 50 miles an hour with one of your cars? What are you guys planning on doing to achieve that goal?
Yeah, I mean, 1,500 is the first step towards it, but our Hyper 1,500 is still, are we going to stick with just 1,500, or is that going to be a 1,500 plus, essentially, where we develop the highest horsepower car that we can to achieve that top speed, but also hopefully reach the standing mile in 300. And yeah, we do realize, the first back pedal, the first top speed that we're going for is 243, and 243 is the fastest speed recorded by any McLaren. That was the F1 back in the day. So once we've got an event coming up in May that we should break that record. Don't have any concern in breaking 240 in the 1200, especially with you should be able to do that in a mile. And then on top of that, next benchmark is hitting 300 in longer than a mile, and then going for the staying mile. So what we're doing in the development side is, aerodynamics and power to weight ratio are huge. There's a lot of these companies that they just throw more and more horsepower. More is not necessarily better, and that's true to the McLaren brand. The McLaren brand has the smallest displacement engine in its class. I mean, it's only twin turbo 3.8 liter V8. And so that's why we focused on heat management, because for the smallest engine in its class to have the same amount of horsepower as the competitive Ferrari, Lamborghini, and all the other supercars out there, it's going to overheat, and you've got to focus on heat management. So, but then on top of that, that's where, they led the industry with the carbon fiber monocell, and that you already have an infrastructure in the design of the car that allows you to achieve speeds at lower horsepower that other car designs cannot.
Yeah, and the McLaren does look like a very slipstreamy vehicle. You look at a GTR and it's got a big frontal area, not super streamlined. I know its coefficient of drag isn't too awful, but I'm assuming that the McLaren's is significantly lower. Is that true? Absolutely.
I mean, they've done an amazing job in their development of aerodynamics, and we've also heard about in the next series the new 720S, and they're taking the aerodynamics to a whole nother level. We've heard some details on that car as well, but looking at the P1, the P1, I'm sure you've seen the video of the race of the P1, the LaFerrari and the 918, and it winning the 0 to 300 kilometers per hour. And it's aerodynamics is so important, because even if you throw extra 100 horsepower at it, was that going to put down to the ground if you're going up against a brick wall of air?
Yeah. Very curious to see kind of what you guys do aerodynamics wise, because I know you put the P1 hood on your 12C. Is that correct, with the louvers on it?
Yes. So that, some of the aerodynamics we do there's two different focuses. One is the road course, and one is the straight line top speed. So, we're not veering away by any means from our focus on the road course. There is aerodynamic function to the P1 hood. What it allows you to do is it generates downforce on the hood of the car. Also provides additional cooling. There's a large heat exchanger, and Ford GT has one too. It's right there. Takes up the frunk when we do the fully aerodynamic P1 hood plumbing, but gets you a massive heat exchanger to get you that much lower intake temps and cleaner boost and cleaner power in the car.
Are you guys having to model the different aerodynamics characteristics now that there's the air going over the hood now, or over the roof, is going to be much different? Are you guys going to be modeling that as well?
So our next steps in reaching for the 300 mark and developing the 1500 is not only making that reliable 1500 horsepower, 1500 plus, but also we've got access to one of the fastest aerodynamic wind tunnels here in the Charlotte area. I think it's considered the fastest automotive one.
Okay.
Because it's what a lot of the manufacturers use, and it goes up to, I believe, 180. I know there are faster wind tunnels, but those are mainly used for aerospace industry.
Yeah, they make little models so that you can get like equivalent of Mach several.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with rockets and stuff like that. So, that's going to be really, really awesome to see how that unfolds. And it's good to hear you guys are taking stepping stones, kind of to get to that 300 mile per hour goal. And so, I wish you the best of luck, because that's going to be really cool to kind of see that unfolding. And so, what are you guys doing to promote your business? So you've said that you're going to lots of events, but, what are you guys doing, for advertising or promotion for your kits?
So we've tried a number of different avenues. We did an ad for a few months in Rob Report. we've got a strong relationship with DuPont Registry. We've done DuPont Registry for several months, and DuPont has been an amazing partner for anybody that's looking for a company to do magazine advertisement, especially in the automotive industry. I think DuPont's probably one of the best ones to do. One, it's well known as one of the top automotive marketing companies out there, but two, just the team that they have there. I got the chance to drive our 800 car, went on a Florida road trip. It's another thing that not only shows reliability in our systems, but is also a good marketing plan that we do. Is we like to drive our cars. Our 800 car started with 900 miles when we built it. We're about 2 years since we built it, and we've got 28,000. I've driven it from Charlotte to Miami. I've driven from Charlotte to Boston, drove it from LA to San Francisco, LA to Monterey. And it just shows, there's a certain level of wow factor when you say, okay, I didn't trailer this car down here, I drove it. And DuPont's in Tampa, and got to meet, everyone up to the president there. And those guys, they take it to a whole nother level in supporting their clients and their customers. So definitely recommend them.
Yeah, that's sorry to interrupt, but that's very interesting, hearing a magazine. The majority of the people that we interview on this podcast are for the import market and, the Japanese imports. And so magazines have been dying left and right for many years, but your target market is a, affluent, older generation that probably do still read lots of magazines. I haven't even thought about DuPont Registry since, being a little kid and getting them at the airport or something, to look at all the cool cars, but totally understand that that's probably a really good way to reach your potential customers that own McLarens, because they're probably still subscribing to that or reading it. So it's interesting to see the varying markets, how that has a different target market for it. So very cool. So what about in other events as well? You're doing a lot of events. So how about those?
Right. We do events every single month, if not multiple times a month. But sorry, to backtrack before I dive in that, the magazine industry, yes, it's a very traditional thought, but what DuPont's done very well, and what I think Rob Report lacked, is DuPont not only did the magazine spread, but they also promoted on social media, and they've done the newer avenues as well. So it's not necessarily part of the advertising package. It's just the way that company is ran and how they're still successful. So, you've got to find, if you are going to go the printed route, make sure you find a good company that, you talk to them, what is your social media reach? Look at their Facebook page, look at their Instagram page, see, do they really have a potential to help you in all avenues, not just the print. But then, back to the events, those events, they're huge. There's so many different communities out there. You've got the straight line community, that we're talking about, which is completely different from the road course community. I look at it, back at the old math problems of the two overlapping circles,
yeah.
There is a very small niche group of people that do both. They are such different worlds, it's not even funny. But the road course community is growing at a level that I think the straight line community did years ago when, all the airstrip events started popping up. The event we were at in Dallas was a launch of the new LG Motorsports Park there north of Dallas. And it's going to be like a thermal club and a private track. And we're seeing those pop up around the country left and right, from talking to, the guys that are working on building these tracks to, the track enthusiasts that are, keeping in tune with where all the latest and greatest, performance venues are going to be. So I feel like the road course community is really strong on the West Coast, and the West Coast, I think, sometimes leads the way in performance industry at times. And I'm seeing the East Coast finally realizing, there's a lot of opportunity to be had by doing these road course events. We're working with dealerships here in Charlotte that we're going to be doing a track event at Lowe's Motor Speedway. Got the opportunity to, and talk about doing different events. Mm-hmm. Went to Charlotte Cars and Coffee. We don't get to make it every single month, but we try and make it as much as we can. And coincidentally met one of the guys that work at the Speedway. And, he's like, hey, we just redid the inside track, so we've got a really nice road course. Once you guys come check it out, and they're looking to host events, and it's not too insanely expensive compared to Coda and a lot of the big tracks out there, and it can host a really amazing event that's going to build your brand, build your name out there, but also it's going to draw customers to you because they see your passion and see what you guys are all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. At the time of recording this podcast, the TX2K roll race is coming up. Is that something that you guys plan to be going to, or doing more of the roll race events?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely plan on doing straight line events and roll race events. We've got a couple customers that are really big in the straight line community and are asking us to do some really drastic changes and development, and so that it's kind of tailored towards the straight line event. One big one is the drag radial that you've got to have to really put down that power. We've got a customer that's asking us to reduce the rotor size and fit 18, maybe 17-inch wheel on the rear. So we've got a lot of different areas of development to focus on those events. But yeah, once the 1200, that car is got an event in May here on the East Coast, got a couple events coming up. I think once we get past that, it's just going to be traveling. One of the things we want to do is we just want to drive it across the country. Just
That'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we also pride ourselves on our systems is the daily drivability. There's a lot of McLaren customers and owners that they daily drive their car. It's a very easygoing daily driver car that a lot of people call it the ultimate sleeper. It's especially when people don't realize there's 1,000 horsepower under there. So we're going to daily drive our 1200 across the country. Hopefully stop and hit a couple of Texas events at the same time. And Texas 2K is definitely on the horizon, as well as Pikes Peak and all those big straight line events. We want to hit every single one of them.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you guys come out to TX2K. It's a quite the amazing event. And then we've done Pikes Peak a couple times now as a team, and then I've always excited to try to go to the event. But I'd be curious to see if you guys take a car up to that one, because that is really going to push the engineering for the cooling. Because everything we've found is however much cooling you think it needs, just double it, and then you may be okay at the top. It's probably going to melt something at the top, but that's kind of what we've come to the conclusion being. And so one last thing, I remember I was talking to Safa at that event, and he kind of mentioned doing a world time attack event. Do you guys, or I guess really, would you be open to talking about, you maybe have a customer wanting to do the world time attack event?
We've got a customer car in here that we're finishing up that to do some new developments, including a 6-point roll cage that adheres to the world time attack standards, and basically he's going to turn that into a world time attack track car. So it's going to be a 1200 on slicks. It was actually originally a 12C that we did a full 675 front end conversion. We've got the aerodynamic P1 hood, first customer to get that, with additional heat exchanger in the front. So that's definitely going to help in, his track performance. Definitely. And we're doing some new development on the air brake. So it's by far the biggest build we've had to date in all the newer aspects of the car that we're developing on it. But yeah, he's going to be out there doing events and working with him on, helping attend and support him at those events for sure. So, and we definitely want to do more cars like that. We've stripped the entire interior. I mean, it's just a race car. It's got a race seat, full 6-point harness. I mean, and the 12C is a great car. It's funny. I usually use DuPont registry as a benchmark, as because they've got a pretty good reach on all the dealerships, as what the used car market's looking like, because we're helping a lot of customers find cars too. And I looked yesterday for a customer, and there was only 8 12Cs on there, and it's the lowest I've seen it all year. Wow. And the price has gone up about 10 grand. The lowest one I found was 139, and usually you can find one in the low 130s. Some of them were as high as 160 for a 12-seat coupe, which is insane. So the 12C is, people are seeing that it's a steal, they're buying it, but it's a great car. If you want to turn it into a time attack and make it just a full-blown race car, you can get a steal for it, send it here, and just go completely bonkers.
Yeah, I would like to see a lot of those out on the track. There was a Steve Agacani brought a Lamborghini out to Global Time Attack Super Lab Battle last year, and so that was really cool to see him racing pretty much an actual race car against Mark Yeager and Yimi Sport in their Subaru. So it was really cool watching an actual supercar racing against a Time Attack built, just street car essentially is what he had used to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, excited. I'm really enthused to see you guys do more with that, because those are the main events that I go to. So I'd love to see you guys out there. So give us kind of the 1-year plan for the business. Where do you expect to see Hypercar development this time in 2018?
Definitely in 1 year, we're going to have partner shops and a few more locations cross country. Like I told you, we're looking in Texas and also looking in Florida. May not do too many more beyond that, but so we're going to have local locations where you don't have to send your car very far to have 800 build, and a lot of those builds incorporate some of the carbon fiber aftermarket upgrades that we offer, so you can completely reface a 12C to make it look like a 675. But then on top of that, you're going to see this shop. Maybe in a year's time we might move into a bigger location. That's dependent upon how much growth the 1,000, 1,200 builds continue on in the path that we have now, and we're definitely gonna have 1,500 done in the next year. That's for sure. And then with that, by that being done, we're going to be pushing the benchmark for achieving that 300 mile per hour mark. So I don't think Safa wants to achieve it in 2017. I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just being a little bit of a realist with everything that's going on. I think that's a tough hill to climb this year, but I never turn down a challenge, and definitely want to try to achieve that for sure. But if not, definitely 2018.
So then what is your BHAG? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal, like a 5-year plan? Where do you guys where do you hope to see the business, going into 2020?
End goal for us, the ultimate achievement is to have a blessing from McLaren. So, it's a very bold goal to go after, but to have McLaren to trust us as an aftermarket company, whether that be, dealerships can actually openly recommend us and suggest customers to us, or actually somehow being formally associated with the brand. That's the dream, and that's to be able to have a strong relationship and a partnership with the manufacturer, I think is any aftermarket company's goal. And McLaren is definitely one of the brands out there that would be a huge achievement to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to see Hypercar and McLaren team up like Mercedes and AMG. That would be pretty awesome.
To be insane. That's the goal.
So can you suggest an action item for our listeners, that are wanting to, start a business or grow a business? Can you kind of suggest an action item they can do to kind of help improve their situation?
There's a number of different things. One, definitely do your research, see what's out there. In presenting our business plan to the investor, we spent a year refining the business plan, doing the research, watching, the McLaren brand grow and see where it's going. And then also, seeing what the competitive businesses are out there, actually looking at, how much growth they have and how well they've done, and how are you different from them? That's the biggest curveball is you've got to have that unique factor. And it's tough at this day and age. I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there that do, similar functions and similar work, but there's always an opportunity to differentiate yourself. And you can't have any doubt. There's going to be more people, even family, even parents, that are going to say, well, that sounds cool, but I don't think it's going to pan out. Take it and grow with it. Take it and fuel your fire. I mean, make it drive you. And and there's other side businesses I've thought of and tried working on, and they haven't panned out. Look at the founder. I think it's the founder of GoPro. Like, failed 3 businesses before he founded GoPro. You're not going to. Very rarely are you going to hit the mark the first time. So don't think it's going to be a one stop and done. Just keep trying, and if the passion's there and the undying work ethic and the drive is there, it will happen. It just is going to take many long nights, giving up many weekends and many nights of sleep to maybe make it happen.
That's excellent. Really, really appreciate that advice. And so kind of getting into the quick answer questions here, tell us about a game-changing product that you've seen in the last year.
I would say, I don't know, that's the first thing that just popped in my head, that jet thing that hooks up to a Sea-Doo that you stand on your 2 feet and you're like on the water. I don't know if that's necessarily opened the door to it, but I feel like all of a sudden there's all these different, you've got like powered like boards for the lake, and you've got like all these crazy just fun toys on the lake that have spawned up lately.
Have you ever gotten on one?
No, I think that I don't know. I might hurt myself on that.
Okay. What software programs on your computer are you using daily?
Biggest thing I think for anybody in a growing business, especially with the clientele that we deal with, is WhatsApp and iMessage. I cannot talk to every person, every supplier, every customer, and every person in this company at the same time and have constant phone calls with them. Messaging is the new avenue of a growing business. And I am constantly text, WhatsApp, I think fewer emails, just because you can get so much quicker across quick messaging.
Yeah, we are seeing more and more of that, and we use something similar called Slack for our software development side. And so yeah, it's can be annoying sometimes when you get a lot of people on one conversation, but it is very quick. So yeah, we do like using stuff like that.
Well, then WhatsApp, like I just had a call with Zip Europe in Netherlands, and I can call them over WhatsApp. I don't have to worry about credits or anything like that. It's pretty sweet. So.
Yeah, and I've called people over the Facebook Messenger before, and
really?
It makes a very strange ring noise. It's like not your typical ringer, and it always catches people off guard. But it is, kind of the similar thing. You can be messaging them and then jump on a call real quick and then continue messaging them. So that's cool that WhatsApp does that as well. I'm gonna have to do some more research into that one. And so then just on your phone what's your favorite app? Is it the WhatsApp integration?
Favorite app? It's pretty cool. WhatsApp messaging goes through your phone. I think of funnest app, something that I'm not necessarily doing for work all the time, is, I'm a big music fan, so I use Shazam all the time. That's something that, especially on these road trips, listening to new music, always a big fan of Shazam.
What about your favorite shop tool when you're out working in the shop? What do you like to use the most?
Oh man, you would never ask. You never ask. It is the 1/4-inch drive swivel head ratchet.
The 1/4-inch drive, huh? The little baby one?
Oh, you got McLaren's. It's all M6 bolts all over the place, and Allen 1/4-inch drive socket set.
Little bitty Allen, because they put the smallest bolt possible. Are they all titanium bolts?
They do. There's a lot of 4mm Allens all over the car, 10mm sockets, 8mm sockets. But that, for McLaren being a very tight car, and I've got many scars on my hands and wrists from trying to find in places. That swivel, I'm talking about the full swivel head. I keep that in my back pocket.
Gotcha. Well, other than racing cars, what's your daily driver?
Daily driver is got a newer A6, but looking to move into a little faster car that we're going to tune and probably going to do a wrap on. So we're partnering with a few Maserati dealerships and probably looking at maybe like a Ghibli.
Oh, very cool. Well, to end this, where do you think the future of automotive performance is heading?
Electric.
Going electric, huh?
110%. Look at Formula E. If you're not doing something with electric, I've seen some undisclosed announcements of certain manufacturers going completely driverless in the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. The electric world is, you're already seeing it blow numbers away, and we have other projects we're working on through partners of ours to not only apply that on a hybrid setup of a McLaren down the road, but also having some of the fastest electric cars out there.
Very cool, man. I wish you guys the best of luck in working with some of that.
Thank you.
So how do we connect with you and your company?
We've got a pretty strong Instagram following, Hyperfast Cars. Our Facebook page, I need to work on growing that a little more. We're I think maybe 1,000 likes on Facebook, but Hypercar Development on Facebook. Our email's info@hyperfastcars.com. Website's hyperfastcars.com. Updating the website now, so don't judge. It's a little dated, but getting ready to do a big update on that. And definitely, if you're a track enthusiast, and one of the aspects of the website I'm going to be updating is I want to put a calendar up there of all the events we're going to be at. We definitely are huge track enthusiasts. We by no means, expect anybody in our group or community of the people that are passionate about the track to own a McLaren to come enjoy the track with us. If you've got any car that you're ready to go hit it as hard as you can with us, definitely would love to see you there at our next event and talk to you about what you do and what we do, and have a good time.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time and talking with me today.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
Okay, have a good one.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests.